B2B case studies can easily land 6 and 7 figure contracts if they're written right. In my last video, I went over the 3 biggest mistakes I see in most B2B case studies. Today's video will be about writing a great B2B case study from the ground up to convince your prospects to buy your product or service. I've written dozens of these case studies that have led to enterprise deals and conversions, and I want to show you my process. This won't be a short video like they have been in the last few weeks, so just get some coffee, relax, and get ready for a lot of information. Okay, number one, the first thing you need to do is start with a plan for your case study. You need to know what your case study is going to be about, how it will be used, why you're writing it, what its purpose will be. Think of some metrics driven titles for your case study. Have those in mind that make sense for your product and your marketing. Like maybe you sell something that helps people save money with cloud costs. So you might have a title that's like, how our customers saved 35% on their AWS bill with our product, something like that. And since it's your customer that you're writing about, you should know enough about their product usage that you have a result in mind to showcase. The main thing is don't walk in blind when you go to interview your customer. You need to have something in mind. And you should go in with some basic information about what you know, how they use your product. The more you know up front, the more control you have over the upcoming interview. Now, I also recommend you write out your questions beforehand. Send it to the interviewee so that they can prep, so they know what they're going to be asked. Sometimes we send out questionnaires for the interviewee to just type in their answers, and then we'll rehash them because then when I'm doing an interview, and I'll cover this in a little bit, I can ask like follow-ups or have the details necessary to make sure I get the information I need. But the key thing about having a plan is to remember that your case study is a marketing and sales piece that you and hopefully your customer will be sharing with other people. So make sure you know what its function will be after it is written. Okay, number two, great case studies are built on great interviews. I cannot emphasize this enough. If you don't get enough valuable information to write about from your interview, your case study will be useless. You can talk to a customer for 45 minutes and still end up with nothing or just lackluster information. As an interviewer, you need to keep the conversation on track and results oriented. You need that results oriented information so that you can get what you need to write your case study. There's a lot at stake with a case study interview, and you typically only get one shot for the conversation. Usually you can't, especially if the customer's big, you can't just call them up and say, hey, can we do another interview? It doesn't work that way. So here's how I run my case study interviews. I always book 60-minute calls when I can. Sometimes the interviewee only has 30 or 45 minutes. That makes it challenging. I don't recommend it. Next thing I do is I start the interview by telling the customer this is going to be a story about the challenges you faced, how the product in question resolved the challenges, and how the product is enabling a better future for you and your team and your company. Okay, I also always record the call, and I will miss something in my notes and that I will catch when I watch the video later. I also take copious notes, practically dictation during the meeting. I do all bulleted lists and stuff like that, and I use tab indents to sort the information as the conversation is happening. I also have other people in my document for support. They help to fill in gaps, they point out questions that I can ask, and they look for areas of clarification while I'm typing like a madman talking to a customer. The way I structure my calls, like the first 20 minutes are just high level intros and what was life like before you bought this product and how did you select it. I just try to get all of the setup information. If you are trying to write a case study without a setup, then you are not going to be able to tell a good story because you'll just have a middle and an end. You won't have a good beginning. The second 20 minutes of the 60-minute call are generally about what happened once they bought the product. What changed? What was their emotional reaction? Don't just capture like technical information. We did this project, we got this result. Talk about how people felt. Like that is such a big part of getting the story, especially in the second 20 minutes. It's usually like I'll ask a question beyond just the success. What were people thinking when they saw these results? Did you get any emails? Were people excited? Did they say, wow, this is great? Just talk me through emotions. And then the last 20 minutes of my call, they're usually about what's happening now for that company and what they're looking to do in the future. So I generally, depending on the product, I'll ask the interviewee, like, okay, this product has gotten you here. Now, where is it going to take you in the future? I'll also use that time to read some prompts to get some direct quotes from them that I can use in the case study draft. So I might say, tell us about how this product has changed your business, and restate that prompt in the form of a statement. And then I'll get a direct quote from them. This product has changed my business by blah, blah, blah. I have interviewed thousands of people. That's not an exaggeration. Just on my YouTube channel alone, several hundred people. So I have a muscle for this. If you don't have interview skills, running a good case study interview is probably going to be really tough. One of the main reasons people hire me is not because I can write a case study, even though I can do that. It's because I know how to interview people, and you never know what kind of person you're going to be interviewing. So make sure that if you're going to do an interview, you already have an established relationship, or if you're going in cold, you better have some pretty good interview muscle. Okay, number 3, transcribe and analyze the interview. Look for themes and new insights. I typically take the interview recording and I feed it into an app called Descript, and they do really good interview transcriptions, even with international accents, and that can be a real challenge sometimes too. Plus, Descript's transcripts actually look good. So then I feed the transcript into a couple of AIs that do not train on customer data, and I can see what maybe the AI sees. Maybe there's another angle that I was missing because I had the tunnel vision. I was in the interview. I'll also ask the AI if there's anything in the transcript that I missed in my notes. So I feed my notes in, I feed the transcript in, and then I tell it to compare the two. Then I'll go into the transcript document and actually highlight important moments. Sometimes my clients will do that either with me or for me. But we go into the transcript, select some text, highlight it, leave some comments. We look for opportunities for quotes, and I'll do a whole other video on case study quotes. That's probably the next video. But if your interview, like if it goes really great, then you're going to have a lot of highlights, and that's going to be awesome. And if it goes really, really great, you might have a video that's worth cutting up into social media clips to support your case study release at a later date. At this time, it's a good opportunity, like when you're reviewing the case study transcript and getting an idea, in mind, it's a good opportunity to make sure your initial plan is still relevant. You might have gotten new information from this interview that warrants changes to the original plans for your case study. You might have new goals. For example, they might have a use case that's much better for your marketing plan, or there's a bigger impact to the business that you didn't know about and you found out in the interview. The main takeaway here is update your plan if you need to, because the interview transcript might take you in a new direction. Number 4, start with the metadata. Before I write anything, I start with metadata. That means the title, subtitle, meta description, thumbnails, if there's a visual blog, anything that's like about the case study, I start there. The title especially is crucial to get right early on. It will drive whether people click and want to read. It will support your original plan for the whole thing. Like, the title is crucial. Of course, it's malleable and you can change it later. But when you have a good title and metadata in place, it makes it much easier to write a good case study. Another thing, nobody actually wants to read a case study. Like, no one casually reads case studies. It's really about like, I'm interested in buying this product, so I'll go see what other people are getting out of it, especially if it's a not cheap B2B product or tool. Usually companies like B2B buyers will go read case studies for social proof to make sure that this product actually does what people promise. And your metadata is like absolutely crucial to that. You want to do the best you can to earn the click. This metadata practice comes from my experience with YouTube, where I've built a niche music channel with 40,000 subscribers over the last 11 years. And so I actually just made a video about how I went from 20,000 to 40,000 subscribers in under a year. And the metadata is everything. That is what drives clicks. So I always try to provide a variety of title options. It's not just like come up with one title, it's come up with 10 titles. And I range them from like really tame to clickbaity, so that I can emphasize different results. Headlines should put the result first when you're thinking about your headline, especially if the case study features like a popular brand. If it's a brand no one's heard of, you don't need it in your headline. But if it's a brand that people have heard of, like Toyota or something like that, a headline that's like Toyota sees 68% ROAS boost from our analytics platform. That's a good headline because people know who Toyota is. 68% is a big number for ROAS, and performance marketers who are probably going to read this case study are always looking for ways to increase their ROAS. I'll also make sure I have a good meta description set. Sometimes I'll come up with 2 or 3 different options for my clients, and I'll use different keywords or angles because you really want that metadata to feed, whether it's an AI reading it or a Google search engine, bot. You just want them to have the right keywords, the right positioning before it gets to the content. Okay, number 5, outline and draft. I always make sure I start with an outline that tells an actual story and follows basic storytelling principles. There's a beginning, there's a middle, there's an end, there's a main character. So I try to make sure all of that stuff is in place in my outline. So in the intro, I talk about the success of the company that I'm interviewing, and I set up the interviewee as the main character, as the hero. And then in the first main section after the intro, I'll highlight the changes their company was facing in some detail, setting up a scenario where the product that I'm writing about is the obvious and only solution. Like, that's why you're here. You're here to read this case study about how someone went from challenges to success using a product, and the interviewee is just like me or just like the person on my team that's going to be doing this. So after that, I'll describe some of the early successes of choosing that product and where they were able to like make a difference using the product. And then in the next main section, I'll write about a bigger business problem that got solved with further usage of the product. And then finally, at the end, I will write about what's next, what the company is doing with this product, and how the product's going to have a lasting impact on the company. Okay, number 6, get the details right. Generally, I try to make the interviewee the hero of the story, like I mentioned earlier, because they're going to get more emotional support from their peers. So if that if that interviewee shares the case study on social media, their peers are more likely to share that case study. Plus, a reader is going to go, oh, I want to find out more about this person, or this person sounds like they have a similar role to mine. And when you have a person as the main character instead of a company, the reader, who is a person, is going to have more of an emotional response to the case study. For each of my clients, I use a case study template that literally describes what each paragraph should do. Like, the first paragraph should be about da 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 da. The second paragraph should be da 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 da. So I make it very clear how to structure each of these case studies for my clients. And then I have an AI like take a lot of the information and it'll build the outline for me using that template, or build a draft, and then I can go in and make sure everything is good. This usually takes quite a bit of tweaking and back and forth with the AI, between the AI and human editing. This is where most of the work happens. Another thing is the AI I use, ChatGPT, is highly tuned to my style and expectations. I have tons of memories set. I have custom instructions. I have custom commands. There's just a lot going on with ChatGPT that I do that helps it serve my purposes. So after all of that, I do a manual review to make sure all of the important points I highlighted in my notes and transcript actually made it into the case study. This is a good point in time to go back to the original plan and make sure I am accomplishing the original goals of the case study. It's really easy to just start writing something and think, "Oh man, this is good. I'm on a roll. I'm in a state of flow." And then I find myself realizing I've gone off course. So sometimes I have to make adjustments, and then I'll like do some more bigger editing, beefier editing, and sometimes I'll send it to a third-party editor or an employee or freelancer just to review the case study and make sure it's good. Once all of that is in place, then I send it to my client for review, which leads to step 7, get all the revisions. Now, my client case studies, they always require multiple reviews. Depending on the size of my client, it could just be a marketing director, like a one-person team, or it could be a whole marketing team and a legal team and a product team and an account manager and all these other people. So sometimes a round of edits takes a day. Sometimes it takes a few weeks. But once we get through all the comments and suggestions and actioning, all that stuff, then we'll send it to the interviewee for their review. And depending on their size, there might only be one person reviewing it, the interviewee, or the interviewee says, I have to send this to my marketing team and my legal team and my product team and all of this stuff. So just expect that some case studies might take just a few days to go from interview to publication, and others might take months. I have seen case studies go 6 and 8 months, like for some of my clients. They go so long, I forget I even wrote the case studies. So the client will say, okay, we're finally ready to publish this case study. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember writing that. Which leads to step number 8, publishing. Do more than publish. Publishing a case study on your website is just the first step towards a successful case study. If you're co-marketing with another brand, you should also be writing a press release and probably some additional blogs. Have some emails ready to go out to your mailing list. Make sure you have PDFs of this case study for your sales team to send out via email. There's a whole bunch of ways to use this case study beyond just clicking publish and then walking away and being like, it's done, thank goodness. You definitely want to have some social media posts about it. You want to tag the interviewee. You want to tag the company that is related to the case study. You want to tell people once or twice a week for the next 2 to 4 weeks about the case study. And it's not just like, hey, check out our case study. It should be like, make it a journalistic effort. Did you know Toyota saved 68% or increased their ROAS by 68% with our ad platform? Find multiple data points in the case study and make different social media posts about that. And if you got a really good recording and permission to share the video, take little clips and attach them to your social media posts. That makes them more engaging and more likely to actually be read. Beyond that, make sure your case studies are easily accessible on your website. I've seen too many companies just bury their case study link way at the bottom of the page in their site footer, and then it's impossible to find case studies and read them. Don't make it hard for your prospects to find your case studies, because case studies are crucial to convincing them to buy. Whew. Okay, that is everything I have for right now about writing a case study. It's a big process and it's riddled with a whole bunch of complexities, but it's the most important content deliverable when you want to convert a sale. There are many ways a case study can go sideways, most of which I did not cover in this video, but here is what the happy path looks like based on everything that I do. Have a plan for the case study, conduct a great interview, transcribe and analyze the interview, update the plan if necessary, build strong metadata with click-worthy titles, meta descriptions, subtitles, and thumbnails, write an outline, or a draft that tells a story with the interviewee as the hero. Get the details right, especially if you're using AI assistants. Make sure everyone gets a chance to review and revise, and have a publishing plan in place. Wow, that's a lot. Have a publishing plan in place. All of those things are what it takes to build and write a successful case study. If you have any comments, suggestions, you have a different process, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Hope you enjoyed this. Let me know if you've got anything you want to talk about with case studies. Send me an email. We write case studies for small clients and very large clients. I would be happy to talk to you about helping out.